D, part of the KHZTV.com radio network. My name is Mark.
And my name is Cindy.
And we have on the line with us, calling from Wisconsin. He's been on the air here with me before. The gentleman's name is Joel Blaeser. He spent some time in United States Penitentiary, Marion, a federal supermax penitentiary in Indiana, for selling LSD at a Grateful Dead concert.
Yikes.
And the reason we brought him on the air is two states here in the United States have passed legalized marijuana laws. Those two states are Washington and Arizona. You can now own an ounce, and be in possession of an ounce or less of marijuana, and if you're 21 years or older, you are legal. You're legal in the state, but what we're going to talk about is the ramifications of that with Joel, the fact that you're not in compliance with federal law. Federal law still has marijuana illegal, and we're going to talk about the pros and cons of legalizing drugs. So without me rambling on too much further, I'm going to introduce Joel and ask him to come on the air. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, good. Good morning.
Good morning, Mark.
Hi, Joel. Welcome to the Hartford Edge.
Hi, Cindy.
Hi.
It is Cindy. Hi, how are you, Joel?
Yes, I'm good. Good morning.
Good morning. You're calling from Wisconsin, so it's an hour earlier out there. It's about 7:20, I guess, out there.
7:30. I've been up since 5:30. I didn't smoke any pot this morning, so I'm nice and awake.
Good. We're gonna get you all sharp.
Exactly. Give us like a minute or I know that's a lot to ask, but a minute of your background, real quickly.
A minute of my background. I'll start a little earlier. I traveled the world with the Grateful Dead selling LSD. Went to prison. There was a bunch of drug riots in the prison. I was subsequently sent to the United States Penitentiary, Marion, on narcotic charges, LSD charges. Using what I learned in the law libraries in Marion and from other convicts, I started a real estate company when I was released in 97. I made millions of dollars. I lost it in 09 in the pop in the housing bubble. I'm rebuilding now. I just bought a house. I have been sober for 9 years, haven't had a drink or any drug. December 29th will be 9 continuous years. Come from a family of 5. I'm 43, never married, no kids, and have a really nice girlfriend. I'm not sure where that's going to go. And, is that a minute?
You did a perfect job.
I don't think I could wrap up my life in a minute like that. That was outstanding, Joel.
Wait, you are a proponent for the legalization of drugs, and specifically marijuana, which has just happened in 2 states. Give us your take on that. You were busted for LSD.
Would you make that legal?
I would make all drugs legal, yes, and that's a big discussion. I think that making all drugs legal does a number of things. It takes the criminal element out. It creates jobs. It actually will lessen addicts in the long run. It will open the prisons for more violent offenders, and it'll take it will. When I said that the criminal element, and there was one other point. It'll create tax base for the government, which obviously now we're getting ready to go over the fiscal cliff.
Yeah, I had a question about that, Joel. I understand the idea that if you legalize drugs, they'll be sold like any other product will, and they'll be taxed, and that will, bring some revenue into government. But are the criminals going to just go away? I mean, won't there still be a black market? And won't it still be dangerous? And won't there still be crime? And, won't you just create sort of 2 tiers? I mean, you can make the case that the government may get in on the action, but what's going to stop the drug lords from doing what they do and just doing it under the table?
Well, the 2 things come to mind. First is would be prohibition when it was illegal, and there was a long time ago, and I've only watched and read. I didn't live in that era, but there obviously was a lot of problems with the consistency and the quality, and there was an overwhelming desire for people to drink. And then the flip side of it all is, even if, let's just say what you said has a high degree of accuracy, which I don't think it does, but it's a reasonable question, isn't it? Wouldn't it be better to get the benefits of? I totally lost my train of thought.
Well,
totally lost.
What about the social costs, and if people who had free access to the hard drugs, the heroines, the cocaines, the LSDs. With the social...
Oh, no. Okay, yes. This is the thing. This is the flip side I was going to say. What you said, Cindy. The fact of the matter is, well, making it illegal hasn't, and going back to the prohibition, that making it illegal hasn't stopped people from doing it. And I hate to use the adage of lesser than two evils. And so the social impact, yes, there is a social impact. But if you could say in a perfect world, if you had a crystal ball and you said making it legal or making it illegal wouldn't really affect the social impact, which I think that you can make, because you can get drugs anywhere, any city, you can get just about anything. So making it illegal hasn't stopped that. So why not make it legal? Bring it to where we can control it. We can have the quality at a certain level, so that people aren't ODing, and then you can identify the addicts, so that now you know who all the addicts are. You can treat the addicts, and you can make more room in prison for violent offenders, and it's motivated by money, but that is something that comes with legalizing it, that the government's going to want to tax it, and they should. And so I think everybody becomes a winner. But getting to our topic, the marijuana laws, I think this is going to have some interesting scenarios as more states follow, because the states are going broke and they're wanting to get some of these tax revenues. But I think there's a lot of issues that are created by legalizing marijuana, because what about if all of a sudden marijuana is legal across the board in all 50 states, and then somebody's doing 25 years for growing marijuana, which happens, and there's plenty of people in prison? Are those laws going to become retroactive? And
what happens? You've got people sitting in jail right now for selling pot, let's say, in a state that has just legalized it. Yeah, what do you do?
Right. Now, the feds, I don't believe, will do anything because it's not legal under federal law. But like in Washington, now in Colorado and California is medicinal, but Colorado and Washington, I believe, as you just stated, Mark.
It's recreational.
Medicinal, please.
No, California's medicinal.
I know.
But that gets the whole thing, because
that's so lax, isn't it? I mean, doctor, it hurts here. Here has some pot. I mean, people go to these clinics and say they need it for medicinal purposes, and that's how they get it. Does it really cut it off that much?
I'm sorry?
Does it really cut it off that much if you make it legal for medicinal purposes?
Well, I think some people do need it, and some people use it, and I think some people abuse that notion of the medicinal side of it, but it clearly has medicinal
value. Medicinal
quality to it. It
Absolutely.
does. And it was first recorded for medicinal purposes in 27 BC. Both George Washington and Thomas Jefferson grew marijuana on their plantations.
No, say it isn't so. Our founding fathers.
Well, the thing is, I do believe in a medicinal marijuana, and it's no different than OxyContin or morphine or anything like that. If there's something in that, if it's a THC or whatever that can help somebody feel better, I'm all for it. I think it's actually inhumane to deny somebody marijuana if they know that marijuana will help them get through either the nausea of chemotherapy or whatever. And I think you could control, you're not going to control it entirely, but I think you can control the abuse of that through doctors and prescriptions, like we control pain medication. You'll never control it 100%, but I think we can control it some. My question is, what's going to happen, Joel, with the states that right now there's 2 states that allow it for recreational use, that it flies in the face of the federal law that still prohibits it? So what's going to happen to a Joe Blaeser that goes to Washington, has a quarter ounce of pot on him, and he gets pulled over for speeding, and the cops find him, and he's legal under the state law, but he's not compliant with the federal law?
I think, and I don't want to get too heavy into politics, I believe under Obama that it will be okay. And it seemed once he was in office, there was a 60-minute show about 3 years ago, and then there was one about maybe 6 weeks back. And he started to I say he because when the Justice Department does something, it goes back to him. But it seemed around election time, he seemed to sort of clamp down a little bit. But now nobody's not sure where he stands. But once he was in power, he seemingly had told the DEA made statements, and it was on 60 Minutes, this was about 3.5 years ago, that they were really going to stand down on the federal laws and let basically the state of California regulate it as they would, because the state of California, if you had a grow room and you didn't have the proper licensing and you weren't supplying the medical clinics, they were busting you. And if you go on the website for the Mendocino Sheriff's County, right on their website, they show you the licenses you need to grow marijuana, and they inspect it, and it's very regulated. But it's an interesting question because you're right, that issue is going to come up, and nobody really knows where it's going to go. But I think in the end, can any president, Republican, Democrat, Independent, Libertarian, say in the face of such wicked economic stuff that we're facing that we can turn this away? Now,
well, is that going to be the argument now is there going to be, do you think, a federal push, or are you just relying on a lack of enforcement at the federal level? In other words, is there going to be an effort now to legalize marijuana at the federal level?
I think so, because if you look even back with Bill Clinton, Jocelyn Elders. Now,
but he didn't inhale. Bill Clinton didn't inhale, so you can't.
No, I know. He's doing the exhale. So with Jocelyn Elders was the big thing with the condoms in the school, but she also had written stuff about the marijuana legalization and drugs, and so Clinton, but she got so much flack for it, Clinton had to fire her.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's sort of your point, right? I mean, you even said Obama sort of backed off during the election. If he was going to go light on enforcement, there was sort of this sense that it wasn't popular. So that's really my question. Do you think that could ever happen, that a politician will stand behind that?
I'm a hopeless romantic.
That's one way of putting it.
It's Cindy, right?
Yeah.
Cindy, I'm a hopeless romantic, and I know for sure I've seen him, Obama, on giving speeches. His eyes are red. He clearly smokes marijuana, and the fact of the matter is he's in his second term.
Wait, hold on. Are you accusing the president?
You heard it here first on the Harvard Edge.
He smokes.
I'll say this.
He does smoke cigarettes.
I'll say this, Joel. That explains a lot.
She's a Tea Party.
It does. Did you see him on the second debate? It was like he took too many bong hits.
Oh, no, you know what? That's the first excuse I've heard that makes any sense at all. I like this, Joel.
Mile High City, he was a mile high.
You know, I see Joel on the David Letterman show here.
Yeah, I see the feds at his door in about 5 minutes.
No, but on a serious note, do you think that you're looking at it from a revenue generating point of view, but do you think the revenue generated from taxing marijuana specifically will outweigh health costs that are involved?
Well, wait, now here. Okay, that's a great question. The thing is, I think the first question that we have to ask ourselves is, making it illegal stop people from smoking it? And I think it's a resounding no. So we can get, and the reason I keep bringing up the monetary point of it, I take an addict's point of view, because I believe that if you made it legal, you would actually have much less addicts. And
now that's interesting. Why do you think that would be?
Because you would, first, I mean, if you look in Germany, the statistics are that there's less alcoholics there, and alcohol is looked at much less like this forbidden thing, and the age and all of that. And so you identify the addicts. The addicts have to come to, now, because we're not talking necessarily marijuana, we're talking all drugs, but let's just say marijuana, because if it's illegal, it's not looked at this taboo thing. You're not rebelling against your parents. And when something's sort of dangerous and this
what
elusive
are kids going to
thing,
do now to rebel against their parents? Get crew cuts and become Republicans? I mean...
and then the other thing is, well, let's look at the alcohol. I don't think you can overdose. The LD50, the lethal dose for marijuana, is for a full it's not physically possible. But you look at all the alcohol deaths and all the deaths caused by cigarettes. And
Yeah, well, they're all legal, so I'm not getting you.
Well, no, but
right, and
alcohol was not
I
legal.
think, can we all agree, Mark and Cindy, that alcohol is probably one of the worst drugs known to man?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
Delicious, but it's just
not that two wrongs don't make it right. So, and then the thing is with marijuana, there's this whole notion that it's a gateway drug and it leads to
Well, yeah. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because
I think life is the gateway drug.
Well, that's a good way to put it.
So, come on.
In other words, what Joel's saying.
But what about the scientific evidence that THC makes changes in your brain chemistry that make you more susceptible to other kinds of drugs? I mean, what about that? That fact. I mean, life is the gateway drug. Let's all just die.
The stress of life and so forth.
Yeah, all right, I understand that, but the point is that, are you concerned at all about
Can I read this to you? This is not. The Institute of Medicine's 1999 report on marijuana explained that marijuana has been mistaken for a gateway drug in the past because patterns and progression of drug use from adolescence to adulthood are strikingly regular. Because it is the most widely used illicit drug, marijuana is predictably the first illicit drug most people encounter. Not surprisingly, most users of other illicit drugs have used marijuana first. In fact, most drug users begin with alcohol and nicotine before marijuana, usually before they are the legal age. That's from the Washington, D.C. National Academy of Private.
Well, yeah, but it doesn't address the medical, it doesn't address the physical and the biological changes. Yeah, I'll grant you that you're not talking about causality here, you're talking about association. But there is a causality argument, and it's on, the biochemical level.
I think that any person that's developing, let's say from 0 to 18, at anything, nicotine, caffeine, marijuana, alcohol, cocaine, any drugs, I mean, you have to regulate it. I don't know what the specific law is, and it must be 18. And do you know, Mark, in Washington and
in Maryland,
Colorado?
Oh, Washington, Colorado, it's 21. It's 21.
It's 21. Mm-hmm. So I think, and Cindy, I agree with you. Yes, for any sort of developing brain and body, I mean, even lead, paint, or asbestos, it's a chemical, it is a drug, it is a very serious thing. But then at the end of the day, once I'm an adult, is it really, I think what it boils down to also, the fundamental question, can the government tell me what I can do with my mind? Isn't that a part of the big question as well?
It is. It is. My only concern, and I'm torn between the legalization of marijuana, is the social costs that society will eventually have to pay the medical costs and the social costs of an addict. And I don't care if it's tobacco, which it's in the billions, probably in the trillions now, alcohol, which is in the billions.
Gambling.
Gambling's a very good one.
Well, they have to set aside money. Now that we have just approved table games in Maryland. We recently got slots and approval for slots, and so the law also carries a requirement that some money has to be set aside for treatment. Is that something that, for people who have a gambling problem, is that something that you would support on the drug addiction side? I mean, we already do set aside money, but what would you do, take it from the tax base?
Absolutely, and I wrote an article for the New York Times, which they still haven't published an op-ed, and I have it right in front of me, and that's one thing that is taking some of the money that they get to treat the addicts and educate the addicts, which is like a benefit of the legalization, because the fact of the matter is all these drugs are getting sold, all these people are making money, and making it illegal hasn't stopped it, so why not get some benefit out of it? But the Cato Institute in 2009 asked the question, does the new drug policy work in a country that was labeled the worst country for heavy drug users? And this is what it says. This is from my article. It shows that between 2001 and 2006, rates of lifetime use of any illegal drug among 7th to 9th graders fell from 14.9 to 10.1%. 16 to 18-year-olds fell from 2.5 to 1.8, which that doesn't seem like a big statistic, but that's actually a 30% difference. And it says, this is interesting because I smoked my first joint in 7th grade and was well aware of the illegality of it. HIV infections in Portugal for the same time were down 17%. Money saved on enforcement is used for funding the drug treatment and education.
Well, that's a good point. You're spending money on law enforcement that isn't going anywhere.
Yeah, but I'm not sure I buy that you'd have fewer addicts if it was legal. I think there are people now. I hear you, Joel, that drug use is, always seems to be increasing, and it is a societal problem, but you're not necessarily stopping, certainly you're not stopping it by making it illegal. But how many people would use drugs, but they don't, right, would try them, and I'm not, I'm not an expert on the brain chemistry, but there are some people who seem to have wiring that predisposes them to addictive behaviors. And so if you make all drugs legal, then aren't you going to encourage more people to try them, and then it takes them down that pathway? And listen, my whole expertise on serious drug use comes from watching Breaking Bad. But from what I've seen of the addicts on that show, they're very hard to convince to come to treatment.
You're hitting the coffee quite a bit over there.
I know, but my point, I'm not trying to, it's terrible social cost and tragedy. But I just don't know how easy it is. You say, well, we can identify the addicts and then we can get them help. Sometimes they don't want help, and you can set aside money for a societal cost, but that doesn't mean money is going to solve the problem of the societal cost and the personal cost. I mean, were you an addict, Joel? Would you say that you were an addict?
I am an addict. I'm a recovering addict.
So how did you...
He was an alcoholic.
So how did you get yourself, how did you become... You said you were sober, 8 years?
December 29th will be 9 continual years.
9 years, congratulations. Right. I mean, that's an amazing thing to do. How did it happen for you?
How did, what, me getting
your
sober?
Your sobriety, mm-hmm.
I woke up one day. Well, I didn't wake up. I was up all night. I was drinking and smoking pot and using cocaine, mostly drinking and snorting cocaine. And I woke up and I just had enough of having enough. I was talking to the ceiling, oh God, dear God. I had hit the spiritual bottom. I owned my house free and clear. I had a property next door, so I didn't have really, it wasn't so much a big financial bottom. I was single at the time, but my life was falling to pieces. I didn't feel whole, and I had hit this bottom, and I was willing to go to any length. And I had been to 12-step meetings before, but I really never did the steps, and this time it was just different. So that was like a burning bush moment in my life. I don't know. That was a miracle at that point because I had said this is enough, and I just wanted to stop. But on a different note, Portugal, the drugs are legal completely, and the use is down, the abuse is down. And the thing is, because this is the other thing, and you asked this question, and I'm trying to segue into this other thing, is that because when you bring it out into the open, it's not such this clandestine thing, and it's not so secretive. You bring it out into the open, and the thing is, with like in Portugal, with the marijuana, with not the marijuana, but the cocaine and the heroin, the hard drugs, you can't just go into a store and buy that. You actually have to register as an addict. You go in and do a clinical setting. They give it to you, and then so that now you're like registered as this addict. And then what they do is they offer. They don't force it on you, but they ask if you want to go. It's optional if you want to learn about the addictive process and what this is doing to you and how this affects
but
your
this openness that you talk about is kind of a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because it's it's one thing if somebody is an addict and they go home and they get high and they don't bother anybody, but a lot of times that's not how it plays out, right? A lot of times people get behind the wheel of a car, or they need money. It's kind of hard to hold a job when you're an addict.
Right.
And so where do you get the money to buy your drugs, legal or otherwise? And so, what effect, don't you think that this is going to increase the crime rate and put the public...
No, it would decrease the crime rate because here's the thing. There's twofold crime rate. Number one, if it was legalized, you're removing the power from the drug lords and the big drug dealers instantly, and it would lessen the price of the people that are stealing and robbing for it. They don't have to steal and rob as much, or they can afford to do it because I think some of these programs are paid for from. It's not necessarily free, but it's at a much reduced cost than what it would cost on the street because the price would actually come down because it's not this illicit thing that everybody's taking a risk going to prison for 20 years for. So.
Yeah, but again, you're talking about it. Yeah, maybe it will cut down on the drug wars, but you still have, I still think you're going to have a black market. But let's put that.
I don't think it'll be as big.
Okay, but let's put that argument
Well,
aside. But my concern is about people getting behind the wheel of the car, people stealing, because it's hard for a meth addict to hold a 9-to-5 job to pay for his drugs. And so what does that person do? They're going to have to commit crimes in order to get money to pay for their drugs. And I'm sorry, I'm not convinced that's going to suddenly go away. And
what about if I told you that there'd be so much money that would be made that in addition to the taxes and the jobs and the government getting all this extra money, that you could take a small portion of that and actually subsidize these addicts to say,
I'd say that if you think that's a good idea, you're probably smoking something.
Not a good idea, but not a good idea. But that's it, because look, how many people go out and are making illegal alcohol and selling it?
Right, they're
Maybe
still
down
moonshiners.
south.
Exactly. They're still moonshining.
Yeah, that's my point.
Well, let me tell you who we're listening to right now. You're listening to Joel Blaeser. He's written a book entitled Letters from Marion. That's not a woman's name. That's Marion Federal Pen. And where can they pick up the book?
The book will be out March of 2013. My Kickstarter ad did not reach its goal. Lettersfrommarion.com is my website, and there's the first chapter is free there, and we're getting ready to post the second chapter. The entire book is done, and we will be published in March of 2013.
Well, terrific.
And it will be available on the website.
Great. Well, Joel, we're running out of time here, but I thank you so much for coming on board, for getting up early and talking to us. Check out the website. What's the website again?
Letters from Marion, Marion.com. Cindy and Mark, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joel. Great conversation.
And look for the book in the spring, in March of 2013, Letters from Marion. You've been listening to Joel Blaeser here on the Hartford Edge. Joe, the best of luck to you, and let's stay in touch. When your book comes out, let's get back on the air.
Yes. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you so much.
Bye now.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That was a lively conversation.
You were on fire. You were on
Well,
fire.
no, I mean, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate
No,
here.
I don't disagree. I think if I was king of the world, I would outlaw cigarettes. Seriously, because the cost is horrendous. The cost to me, to you,
Isn't
and
it
neither one
funny,
of us
though,
smoke.
how cigarettes are so demonized
They
and
are.
drug use is not?
True. But the
Did
politicians...
I just explode your brain there with that
Or,
thought?
it makes so much sense.
I stopped you right in your tracks.
But the social costs and the medical costs are huge. But the politicians are more addicted to the revenue on that pack of cigarettes than they're worried about really people's health.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't part of the tax on cigarettes